Hello and welcome to another An Interview in History. This week we'll be talking with William Frederick Cody, known as Buffalo Bill. He was an American soldier, bison hunter, and showman, one of the most famous and well-known figures of the American Old West. Cody started his legend at the young age of 23. Shortly thereafter, he started performing in shows that displayed cowboy themes and episodes from the frontier and Indian wars. He founded Buffalo Bill's Wild West in 1883, taking his large company on tours in the United States and, beginning in 1887, in Europe. This interview takes place on August 28, 1916. Good day, Mr. Cody. It's an honor to speak with you today. Let's start with your early life. Can you tell us about your family and siblings?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I was born William Frederick Cody on February 26, 1846, in a log cabin in Iowa. My father, Isaac Cody, was a farmer and a fervent abolitionist, while my mother, Mary Ann Bonsall Laycock, was a strong and devoted woman. I was one of 8 children, though not all of us survived childhood. We were a tight-knit family, and my parents instilled in us the values of hard work and standing up for what we believed in.
You had quite an adventurous life, especially on the plains. Could you share some of those experiences?
The plains, where I grew up and became the man I am. My family moved to Kansas when I was around 7 years old. It was a wild place, full of opportunity and danger. My father was involved in the anti-slavery movement, which brought us into some perilous situations. After he passed away when I was 11, I took on more responsibilities to help support my family. I started working as a messenger for the Kansas Pacific Railroad, and before long, I found myself riding for the Pony Express at just 15 years old. That job was one of the most thrilling experiences of my life, riding through hostile territory with nothing but my horse and my wits.
Mr. Cody, one aspect of your life that people are always fascinated by is your time as a hunter, particularly your work as a buffalo hunter. Could you share some of those experiences with us?
Yes. My time as a buffalo hunter is something I'll never forget. It was during the late 1860s when I was working for the Kansas Pacific Railroad. They needed someone to provide meat for the workers, and that's where I came in. I was out on the plains almost every day, hunting buffalo to feed the crews. In just over 18 months, I killed nearly 4,000 buffalo, hence the nickname Buffalo Bill. It was hard work, but there was something about being out on the open plains with nothing but my horse and my rifle that really spoke to me. The buffalo were essential to the Plains Indians, and seeing the herds diminish over time was sobering. I always respected the buffalo, even though I hunted them in large numbers. It was part of the era we were living in, but looking back, I know it contributed to the decline of a magnificent species.
Those experiences certainly shaped your future. Let's talk about your personal life. Can you tell us about your marriage and children?
Of course. I married Louisa Frederici in 1866. We had 4 children, but sadly only 2 of them survived to adulthood, Arta and Irma. Louisa was a strong woman who kept our family together, especially when I was away for long periods, whether it was on the plains, scouting, or later on performing. We had our shares of ups and downs, particularly as my career took off and I was often away, but we managed to stick together.
But I thought I read somewhere that you had filed for divorce.
Yes, I did file for divorce in 1904 after 38 years of marriage. My decision was made after years of jealous arguments, bad blood between my wife and my sisters, and friction between the children and their father. I'd instructed my brother-in-law to handle Louisa's affairs and property, saying that I often feel sorry for her. She is a strange woman, but I don't mind her. Remember, she is my wife, and we'll let it go at that. If she gets cranky, I just laugh at it. She can't help it. I'd hoped to keep the divorce quiet to not interrupt my show or my stage persona, but Louisa had other ideas. Filing for divorce was scandalous when marital unions were seen as binding for life. My private life had not been open to the public before, and the application for divorce brought unwanted attention to the matter. Not only did townspeople feel the need to take sides in the divorce, but headlines rang out with information about my alleged infidelities or Louise's excesses. Let's move on from this. I can tell it upsets you. Yes, thank you. Let's talk about your career. Your life as an entertainer made you a global icon. How did you transition from being a frontiersman to a showman? It was quite a transition, but in some ways it felt natural. By the late 1860s, people were fascinated by the West and its wilderness. I started working as a scout for the Army, but it was my encounters with writers like Ned Buntline that really opened the door to entertainment. He wrote about my adventures, sometimes with a bit of exaggeration, and people couldn't get enough of it. So in 1883, I launched Buffalo Bill's Wild West. It was a show, and it was a sensation. We traveled across the United States and Europe performing for kings, queens, and common folk alike. The show wasn't just about entertainment. It was a way to preserve the history and culture of the American frontier. Who were some of the royalty that you performed for in Europe? The show toured Europe 8 times, the first 4 times between 1887 and 1892, and the last 4 from 1902 to 1906. We first went to London in 1887 as part of the American exhibition, which coincided with the Golden Jubilee of Queen Victoria. The Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, requested a private preview of the Wild West performance. He was impressed enough to arrange a command performance for Queen Victoria. The Queen enjoyed the show, and meeting the performers, setting the stage for another command performance on June 20, 1887 for her Jubilee guests. Royalty from all over Europe attended, including the future Kaiser Wilhelm II and the future King George V. These royal encounters provided the show an endorsement and publicity that ensured its success. Those experiences certainly made you a legendary figure. Who were some of the notable performers in your shows? I was fortunate to have some incredible talent in Buffalo Bill's Wild West. We had a mix of sharpshooters, riders, and Native American warriors who brought the story of the West to life. One of the most famous performers was Annie Oakley. She was a phenomenal sharpshooter, could hit a target while riding a horse, standing on the back of a gallop at speed, or even shooting over her shoulder using a mirror. The crowds loved her, and so did I. She became one of the stars of the show. Another important figure was Sitting Bull, the Lakota chief. He joined the show in 1885, not long after leading his people into battle against General Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Having him as part of the show brought authenticity and respect to our portrayal of Native American culture. He and I had a mutual respect for each other, and his presence was a significant draw for the audiences. Then there was Frank Butler, and his husband and another skilled marksman. Together they made quite a pair. We also had Johnny Baker, who started as a boy and grew into a sharpshooter in his own right, often billed as the Cowboy Kid. The show also featured cowboys, trick riders, and reenactment of famous frontier battles. We even had reenactments of stagecoach robberies and buffalo hunts, giving people a taste of the Wild West. It was a diverse group of performers, each bringing something unique to the show, and I'm proud of the team we assembled over the years. It sounds like the Wild West show was a true spectacle, with so many talented individuals. What was it like managing such a large and varied group of performers? It was a challenge, no doubt. We had folks from all walks of life, and it took a lot of coordination to make sure everything ran smoothly. But we were like a family, and even with the occasional disagreements, we all shared a passion for bringing the spirit of the West to life. I think what made it work was the respect we had for each other's talents. Whether it was Annie Oakley hitting a dime in midair or Sitting Bull sharing his stories and culture with the audience, everyone knew their role and gave it their all. We traveled far and wide, and it was the dedication of the performers that made it a success. Your show was revolutionary, and it left a lasting impact. As your
show career began to wind down, how did you adjust to retirement life?
Retirement wasn't easy for me. I spent so much of my life on the move, leading men, telling stories, and bringing the spirit of the West to the audiences far and wide. When the show ended in the early 1900s, I found it difficult to settle down. I invested in various business ventures, including a hotel and irrigation company in Cody, Wyoming, the town that named after me. Unfortunately, not all of them were successful, and I struggled financially in these later years. Despite the challenges, I've spent my final years in Cody, trying to contribute to the community. I always loved the West and wanted to help it grow and thrive. But more than anything, I was proud of the fact that I was able to share the story of the American frontier to the world. That's a legacy I hope will be remembered.
A couple more questions, if you don't mind. I understand you had a great respect for the Native Indians.
As a frontier scout, I did respect Native Americans and supported the civil rights. I employed many Native Americans as I felt my show offered them good pay and with a chance to improve their lives. I described them as the former foe, present friend, the American. And I've said many times that every Indian outbreak that I have ever known has resulted from broken promises and broken treaties by the government.
You're also a proponent of women's rights, correct?
Yes, I supported the rights of women. I've always said what we want to do is give women even more liberty than they have. Let them do any kind of work they see fit, and if they do it as well as men, give them the same pay. Women such as Annie Oakley and Calamity Jane had legendary roles in my show, and I've always continued to hire and treat women fairly. Those fellows who prate about women taking their places make me laugh. If a woman can do the same work that a man can do and do it just as well, then she should do it.
Mr. Cody, your life has indeed been remarkable. From your early days on the plains to your global fame as Buffalo Bill. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you for the opportunity to reflect on a life that's been full of adventure, challenges, and triumphs.
Buffalo Bill Cody, one of the most iconic figures of the American West, passed away on January 10th, 1917, at the age of 70. He died at his sister's home in Denver, Colorado, after suffering from kidney failure. In his final days, Cody was baptized and converted to Catholicism, a decision influenced by his sister, Mary Cody Decker, who was a devout Catholic. His death marked the end of an era, as he was one of the last living legends of the American frontier. Buffalo Bill was given a grand funeral with thousands attending to pay their respects. Initially, there was some controversy over his final resting place, as he had expressed a wish to be buried in Cody, Wyoming, the town he helped establish. However, he was ultimately laid to rest on Lookout Mountain near Denver, Colorado, with a view overlooking the plains he once roamed. His legacy as a showman, scout, and symbol of the American West continues to endure long after his passing. And now, forgotten history. They met in 1895 when Helen Keller was only 14 and Mark Twain was 60. Despite the age gap, the two struck up a surprising friendship. In his autobiography, Twain recalled, "Without touching anything and without seeing anything, obviously, and without hearing anything, she seemed to quite well recognize the character of her surroundings." Keller was also instantly at ease when she met Twain. "The instant I clasped his hand in mine, I knew he was my friend," Keller said. Twain helped Keller get into Radcliffe College, which has since been integrated into Harvard University. She became the first deaf and blind person in the U.S. to earn a college degree. The two continued to write each other, and when Twain's wife Olivia died in 1904, Keller wrote to comfort him. It wasn't all sentimental, as both were known to tease each other via correspondence. Join us next week as we talk with the general who served as the leader of the Confederate Army against the Union in the Civil War, Robert E. Lee. Until then, take care.